Hello and welcome along once again to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the podcast that can now be received by 65% of the UK following a huge VCR retuning operation completed at our own expense. I'm Stu Joslin and joining me as always is Alex Greenwood. Greenie, it's great to be back with you, mate. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Yeah, it's exciting to be listenable to so many more people now. Our viewership, or our listenership I should say, is really expanded tonight, and that's so exciting.
Absolutely. We've had crews of dedicated technicians out in force across the country, expanding our reach, tuning in those VCRs and all that equipment to receive It'll Be Alright in the 90s. So if you're listening to us for the first time, it's a real pleasure to be with you. We are, of course, tonight going to be talking about the launch and the advent of Channel 5 in 1997. Possibly the last great milestone in terrestrial television, I think. There's a lot to get into here. There's some really good stuff which we are going to discuss later on. Just before we get into it, though, a word for our sponsor this evening, which is Barratt Homes. If you quote the code ALRIGHT90s to your mortgage advisor, Barratt Homes will subsidise the first £100,000 of your mortgage down to 8.5%, fixed for 3 years. You just got to look for the Barratt helicopter in the skies and the oak tree logo in your local paper for more information. So thank you very much to our sponsors this evening, Barratt Homes.
Very nice. I associate Barratt Homes with Basset Hounds. Is that just because Basset and Barratt sound similar, or have I remembered an old advertising campaign?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's possible it's just because they sound familiar. I don't think Barratt Homes ever had a Basset as their logo or their mascot, although please do write in if I'm wrong on that. It was always the helicopter, the Barratt helicopter, I think, for them.
Okay, well, it's great to be sponsored by them anyway. It's great to have them on board.
You've just moved house yourself, haven't you? I think you've actually taken advantage of that offer.
I have indeed, yes, and that's how the relationship came about, through face-to-face meetings that happened around that time. So, yeah, but it's great. It's great to have them on board. Brilliant.
Although I still say you shouldn't have allowed Geoff to act as your mortgage broker. I don't think he's really got that much experience in that area, but you wouldn't listen.
No, I know. It became very, very apparent that you were right very quickly into the process, but I was sort of locked in by that point. So, but we got it done in the end.
Well, in 50 years' time, when you finally get yourself out of it, then it's a lesson learned for next time, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even buy a house. I'm just moving in with a friend, so it was strange that he was so keen to get involved with the mortgage advice.
Over to the bulletin board and the post bag. Actually had some physical post, Alex, to tell you about through the office door from friend of the pod, regular contributor and listener Teresa Stenson, who took it upon herself to send me, well, I mean, the only real way I can describe it is a vitriolic note saying that she was outraged at the lack of episodes over our summer break. But the note was received through the post on the day that we came back. So I quickly responded to her and said that I hope that made up for it. But next time, Teresa, no need for the foul language through the post. You can just contact us through the normal channels, and I'm sure we can resolve any problems you have with the podcast. But it is lovely to be back with you, and thank you for the great zines as well, as always.
Yeah. It's amazing how foul her language is in the private correspondence, isn't it? It's a very different sort of side that we see in the public facing side of Teresa Stenson. So. We've developed quite the tough hide in this business over the years, haven't we? So we can take it.
Yeah, indeed. It's water off a duck's back now. But yeah, the two sides of Teresa Stenson. There you go.
One very quick thing to start off is that it was pointed out to me by brother and legend of the pod, Adam Greenwood, that in the Films of 95 episode, I referred to Dennis Hopper in Waterworld chewing the furniture, when of course I meant chewing the scenery. Something I realised as I was editing the episode. A bit of a gaffe, but yes, thanks for pointing it out. We do welcome all of the correspondents pointing out our errors, because it's the only way we'll learn, isn't it, Stu?
We absolutely do, and I have some error reporting correspondence of my own from another regular listener and contributor to the pod, Alex Mitchell, who's picked me up on my description of the poster for the movie Fright at the Astoria Cinema in Chippenham, which obviously came up for discussion during the same episode. He's pointed out that the film wasn't called Fright, it was actually called Frightmare, and it's an entirely different poster to the one that I was describing. He managed to find it and send me a picture of it, and I have to hold my hands up and say that is the poster that was in the Astoria. It was for a film called Frightmare, not the classic mid-70s horror movie Fright starring George Cole and Dennis Waterman. So many thanks to Alex for pointing that out. We are nothing if not completely honest when we make mistakes, and we're happy to put our hands up to that one. So thanks, Alex, for pointing that out. I have another correction to make, which I don't think anybody actually noticed, but when I listened back to the episode when it was released, I noticed this, and I can't let this go by without correcting it and putting it on public record. I described Hitherspring as sloping downwards to the right in my description of my bicycle accident. It actually slopes downwards to the left, and I just wanted to say that that is the case. Slopes downwards to the left towards the garages, not the right, and I had to put that on record. Speaking of the bike accident, you remember that I said I would give my dad the right to reply, being as he was a key character in the anecdote, and I was expecting there to be a slew of corrections that he wanted to make and sort of defence of his character in the way that we'd sort of put it across, but he got back to me and said, no, that was exactly as it happened. You got away from me, you were too far away from me, it was too quick, I didn't know what was happening, and you had the accident, and I hold my hands up. So that is Glyn 100% taking the blame for that.
Well, there's a reason why he's a legend of the pod, isn't he? It's brutal honesty. He holds his hands up when he knows he's done wrong or he's got something wrong, and which is very, very rarely the case, I should say. But well done, Glyn, for being honest about that. We don't judge you because parenting is difficult, especially in the 90s.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a long time ago now. I've forgiven you, mate. It's fine.
I wonder how many listeners we lost because of that gaffe you made with the direction of the slope on the Hitherspring garages. Well,
I mean, talk about vitriolic abuse through the post. I had a strongly worded letter from the Hitherspring chapter of the It'll Be Alright in the 90s fan club, who strongly condemned me for getting the geography of their cul-de-sac wrong. So that's why I've really had to come out and put that on public record. Yeah. And hopefully we can get them back. Nothing from the people of Oat Hills as yet. I don't think it's got to them. So hopefully we can nip this in the bud, stem the flow, and we can stop the loss of listeners.
Right. Well, it's been quite negative so far, hasn't it? The bulletin board. The next thing I have here is from Dad of the Pod, Frank, who has sent us another missive regarding. Actually, this isn't regarding the Masonic Hall or Geoff or anything like that. So this is a bit different. And he says, I noticed that while Angel Delight featured a couple of times in your 90s food discussions, I didn't hear any mention of the premier milk and sugar-based dessert, Bird's Instant Whip. Angel Delight is considered by purists to be too frothy, while Instant Whip would contain no bubbles, just solid nourishment. If you were trying to impress a potential lady friend with some home cooking, you would prepare a spaghetti bolognese followed by a dish of vanilla Instant Whip, accompanied by a bottle of Liebfraumlich or a cocktail of red wine and fizzy lemonade. Sadly, Instant Whip was killed by Kraft in 2004 and the world has been a greyer place ever since. And I cannot agree more, because Instant Whip was very much my dessert of choice in the early to mid-90s, and it's very, very sadly missed.
We were 100% an Angel Delight household. I'm not sure I've ever had Bird's Instant Whip.
Maybe it did divide the country for a long time, and you were on one side or the other. It was a different time for the milk-based dessert market back then. It was a very different landscape, and sadly, Bird's Instant Whip did go the way of the dodo and is no longer with us. But there'll always be those small enamel pins cropping up every now and again in antique shops or on eBay of the bird logo, which I always remember fondly, and that's all we have left, unfortunately.
Last thing for me in the post bag today is also sort of sweet dessert related, if you're interested, and I bring you big news from one of the hubs of 90s culture in this area, which is the Chippenham branch of B&M, which always seems to throw up good stuff. And this, again, is another regular contributor, so thanks to everybody who's been sending in their messages and emails. This is from our friend Stephen Robbs, who simply sent me a picture of a bag of Cadbury's Fuse mini treats from the shelves at B&M in Chippenham. So they've been reintroduced, presumably for the Christmas market. He bought them on behalf of the pod. I got back to him and I said, I await your report with interest. He got back to me a couple of days later, sadly, I have to say, with the following review. Not really very Fuse-like. The centre is way too soft and made from caramel. It's still good, but not really worthy of the name. So, while the Cadbury's Fuse is back on the shelf and we love to see it, it would appear in Steve's eyes, and he is a man that I trust, to be a shadow of its former self. But I'm just going to have to get out there and give it some first-hand reportage, aren't I think?
I think you are, yeah. Sometimes when they resurrect these things, it can't live up to the original. But that is only one opinion, so as you say, you should go out and give it a go. But it doesn't look good so far.
I will. I'll report back. Cadbury's Fuse always makes me think of our old business teacher, Miss Jarvis, who had a Cadbury's Fuse mug for many, many years. I'm sure I've probably mentioned that on the podcast before. But whenever anybody mentions Cadbury's Fuse, I always think of Karen Jarvis. So Karen, if you're listening, I hope you're doing well out there. Not seen you for a little while now. But yeah, Cadbury's Fuse always makes me think of you and the fun times in H22.
I bet she got that mug with an Easter egg.
Oh, 100%. There's nowhere else it could have come from.
One final thing, actually, from the bulletin board, also from brother and legend of the pod, Adam. He responds to my my comments on Kids, the film that he made me watch as a mid-teen. Mm-hmm. He says, "Sorry for traumatising you with Kids, but maybe that's what's kept you on the straight and narrow." And yeah, it's quite possibly true. We did discuss this, didn't we? Like, I could have gone either way. I could have gone down the drug and alcohol route, or I could have been scared off it by the film and been very clean. And I have largely been on that clean route. So yeah, it's worked out.
Yeah, looks like he actually did you a solid there. I'm still not watching it though.
Time now for What's the Most 90s. Now, this is something that has been touched upon in recent episodes because we have talked a lot about 90s food recently, but I don't think we ever did this enough justice because it's such a big topic. Stu, what is the most 90s crisp?
This is a big one, and I put a lot of thought into it. I've gone for a personal memory. I've gone for a crisp which is still very much alive and kicking today. I've gone for the skip. For many reasons. Classic advertising. They visibly melt, then they fade away on the tip of your tongue, was one of the strap lines. But there is a well-worn Joslin family story, which is that on my second or third birthday, I can't quite recall, all the family were around, it was my birthday, my mum put a spread on, and all I ate all day was one skip, because I was not feeling very well, and that was all I was up to eating. I had one skip. And that's a story that still comes out on my birthday most years. So for that personal reason, I've gone for the skip. But like I say, I think it's still very much rooted in the 90s, even though it's still going strong today. I think it's still regarded as very much a 90s snack, and that's why I've gone for it.
I think that's a good choice. It is, despite being very popular still, it does feel 90s-ish. It's something about the branding and just the style of it. And I really associate it with birthday parties of the 90s. It was definitely my favourite crisp throughout the 90s, and I still do love them. And yeah, I think it's a good choice and a great flavour. Of course, prawn cocktail being the best. As I was introducing this, a new idea came into my head, a new possibility, which is very rare. Usually I'm just, coming to these episode records knowing exactly what I'm going to say, but something did come to me there. And that was the hedgehog crisp. That's not going to be my answer, but I'm going to say that's my honourable mention, the hedgehog crisp, which lots of people sort of remember. I think when they see the packet, it brings memories flooding back. But I don't know if it was how widespread it was, if it was nationwide, or if it was a Southwest thing. A very strange little snack oddity from, I assume, the 90s, maybe the 80s as well. They were available in the health food shop next to Tongs, if you remember that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
In Corsham, our hometown. They would sell them in these sort of baskets. I can still picture specifically where they were in the shop. They were hedgehog flavoured crisps. I think apparently they had to change that because it was originally, they were just called hedgehog crisps, and they had to change it because it was false advertising because people, I don't know, thought they were made from hedgehogs or something like that. Some nonsense like that, so they had to change it to hedgehog flavoured crisps. But anyway, that's by the by, because that is not my choice. My choice is the Spice Girls Special Edition Cheese and Chive Walker's Crisps. Came in the yellow and green packets. I think probably around 96, 97. Because that's obviously when the Spice Girls were at their heyday. And these were just a delicious flavour. I mean, it didn't matter about the Spice Girls branding really, because they were a great flavour. I don't know why they didn't continue it beyond the Spice Girls, because it was, I seem to remember, a really popular flavour. And this was when Walkers were the king of the market, you know. This was pre the advent of the premium crisp, your Kettles, your Tyrrells, your Burts. It's before all that. This is when Walkers was the crisp. Up there, I suppose, with Golden Wonder and your own brands. Yeah, just very distinctive branding. Spice Girls, obviously, one of the most 90s acts in musical history. And a great flavour, so I wanted to go for that. For both the legacy of Walkers and the Spice Girls branding, and it's a great lost flavour that I think they should bring back.
I realise now, and I concede entirely to you this edition of What's the Most 90s, I realise now that I've played this with far too much of a straight bat. And now you've opened me up to all these possibilities of Salt and Lineker, Cheese and Owen, all of the celebrity tie-ins.
Yeah.
I just didn't think of those at all. And there's a whole world of things like that haven't been discussed here because I've gone with the skips from my second or third birthday. So it's chapeau to you, Alex, on this one, definitely.
Well, as is so often the case with this feature, Stu, you've gone for a more personal choice. I've gone for the choice that's more of a wider cultural or social significance. So it's nice to have that combination, and don't do yourself down. It's a good choice. So yeah, again, I don't know exactly which one we should choose. What do you think?
I think it's got to be the Spice Girl Cheese and Chive. That is completely a 90s crisp.
Okay, that's going in the ledger then. Do let us know if we've forgotten anything though, because I feel like this is one of those What's the Most 90s that there could be lots of hidden gems that we haven't thought about here. So yeah, let us know.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Please do get in touch with yours.
Well, hello. You look like a nice guy. A man with extremely good taste. Have you scored recently?
Got any extra time?
Wanna play, but
this is what I want, what I really, really want.
New cheese and chive flavour from Walkers are so irresistible. Taste no more, Mr. Spice Guy.
Time now for the main topic of tonight's episode, and we're looking at one of the seismic television moments of the 90s, possibly the last seismic moment in terrestrial television history, because we're looking at the 30th of March 1997 and the launch of Channel 5. Now, before we get into this in detail, I just wanted to ask Alex, what are your main overarching memories of the terrestrial? I know we've spoken at length before about our favourite shows and done our dream CBBC and CITV lineups. But what are your general memories of only having 4 channels to choose from? When did your family get satellite TV, for a start?
We never had Sky in the old version of what Sky was. You know, some people would have Sky Sports and Sky Movies and whatever. We never had anything like that. We just had terrestrial right up until Freeview became a thing. Mm-hmm. So we were, very much a 4-channel family until Channel 5, and then we were a 5-channel family until, Freeview, as I say. So we were solely dependent on what was on those 4 channels. I would say we were probably more BBC than anything, as I'm sure a lot of people were, because just the quality of the output there. But we did occasionally slip over to ITV for certain things, like Blind Date. I know is something we used to watch on ITV, and I would watch Gladiators every now and again. And Channel 4, the same. I think we would have gone over there. I know my parents watched Frasier, and I used to watch that as well. And I think NYPD Blue was on 4 as well, so we would have watched that on there. But generally, very terrestrial. So when Channel 5 came along and gave us a 25% increase in our options, it was big. I remember that. I don't know exactly what my expectations were. If I thought it was going to be as good as, BBC 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but it was huge. Actually, Stu, this is reminding me. Did you used to call ITV Channel 3? I'm sure it used to be called Channel 3.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Not called Channel 3 as such, officially, but no one calls it that anymore, do they?
No, and that's another thing that we should bring back from the decade. Yeah, put it on 3, Stu. Coronation Street's about to start. I can still hear it now, like it was yesterday.
That's me for the terrestrial and how excited I was for 5. What about you?
Well, we didn't get Sky until 2005, so we were very, very late to the party, really, in our household. And I used to love going to friends' houses and family members' houses who had it, mainly because if I went to somebody's house after school for dinner who had Sky, they would have episodes of The Simpsons on Sky 1 that hadn't been shown on BBC 2 yet. And that was always a really exciting thing. I also remember going to a relative's house for some family event in the very, very late 90s, and Aston Villa were playing Chelsea on that Sunday, and I phoned ahead and asked if it would be alright for me to watch the match that afternoon at their house. Because I, believe it or not, had never seen an Aston Villa game on Sky before that time. And they were happy for me to do that, and I remember it being a 1-1 draw. So a good point there for Villa at home to Chelsea. But yeah, the buzz was fantastic whenever I was heading to a Sky household. And then we eventually got it ourselves, and the main thing then I remember, because that was also the same summer that I did my GCSE, so we had the big long summer before we went back to sixth form. And I spent a lot of that summer, when I wasn't in the park playing guitar or playing football, watching repeats of Bullseye and Masters Football, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And repeats of Bullseye on Challenge is still something I like to do to this day. Normally on a Friday night after the pub, you can always find a repeat of Bullseye on Challenge late if you're stuck for anything to watch. So, but all that comes as a product of being a committed terrestrial family up until that point. And like you say, the launch of Channel 5 was really a very exciting thing. And there are other Channel 5 programmes that I don't think we'll probably get the chance to discuss it, because I think we're going to specifically talk about the launch night. But the Pepsi chart was a huge one for me. There's a performance, I've been looking for it for ages, and I think it was on YouTube briefly, because I definitely saw it, but it's gone again. Stereophonics and Tom Jones performing Mama Told Me Not to Come, and someone in the crowd throws some underwear at Tom Jones, but gets it wrong, and it lands on Kelly Jones's microphone stand, and it's just there hanging on top of the microphone for the rest of the performance. And it's really something to see, but sadly that seems to have disappeared. So if you remember that, or if you, even better, you've got the clip, do let us know. But yeah, there's a lot to discuss here. The whole process of getting Channel 5 on the airwaves took 10 years. Did you know that? That was something that I came up with in my research. 1987 it kicked off.
Wow. No, I didn't know that. That's wild.
Yeah, so it was this whole thing with, there was a government study that decided in 1987 that there was room on the terrestrial television banding for another channel to come along. And then there was this whole drawn-out process of different media companies bidding for the licence to run the channel. And then there was a whole drawn-out thing, of course, with the TV retuning, which we will come to shortly. But yeah, so the whole thing from start to finish took 10 years to get Channel 5 off the ground, which is something I was really surprised at. I would have really thought it would only have been 2 or 3 years at the maximum, but it took a very long time.
Yeah, that's really surprising. That must have been pretty close to when Channel 4 launched as well, because that was that not mid-80s itself?
Well, Channel 4 was 1982.
Oh, okay.
So it was 5 years later, there was a government study that decided that there was room for a 5th channel. And then it went from there. But I don't know how long it took Channel 4 to get on the air. That's something for another time to look at, maybe.
Yeah, well, you would have thought with 10 years preparation they would have had a better lineup than Family Affairs and Beyond Fear on the opening night. But there you go. We'll get to that later.
We will indeed. But one of the main things that we decided to look at was the half-hour programme that was the very first programme that ever appeared on Channel 5, which was hosted by Tim Vine and Julia Bradbury, and it was basically a look ahead at how Channel 5 was going to operate and what it was going to offer. And this programme begins with a very high-profile performance by the Spice Girls.
It's a power of 5. Welcome to a brand new station. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tune in now for a new generation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guaranteed to be the new sensation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who said? Spice Girls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take it from us. It's girl power. Take it from us. It's a power of 5.
What do you remember about this?
I don't really remember anything about it. I remember more sort of since, because I'm good friends with an absolute mega Spice Girls fan, and she talks about this a lot and how exciting it was. But it was, yeah, I mean, it's a big name, isn't it, for the launch of the channel, because Spice Girls probably the biggest musical act in the world at this point, do you think? Or the biggest in the UK, at least. So it was a real coup.
They certainly were, but it's only about 9 months after the release of Wannabe. So Wannabe's released in July 96. By March 97, they're fronting the launch of an entire new UK TV channel. So it was a version of 54321 by Manfred Mann, which has been reworked and renamed into 12345. Apparently they were paid £500,000 for doing it, and I don't think they could have probably got anybody more exciting or of the moment, as we said, to launch the channel. So a pretty good piece of business to get people watching on the launch night, I think.
Yeah, and it does really suit the launch because of obviously the fact that there's 5 members, and the logo for Channel 5 at that point was, I think it was 5 colours, wasn't it? Sort of rainbow, which I think is actually I really like that logo. It really reminds me of Refreshers, the sweets, which I think one of the greatest sweets wrappers ever made, and it's very vibrant with the 5 in a circle in black over the top.
Yeah.
So with the Spice Girls, they line up with those 5 colours, and it really works for that. And yeah,
I've only just realised that they were all wearing the same colours as the logo. That didn't strike me.
Well, it was so natural. It just worked.
It just shows how observant I was being.
Do you think the Spice Girls ever performed that song ever again? There's no sort of record of it as a recorded song or anything. It's not in their discography on Wikipedia as a single or anything. It's quite hard to find any details about, actually.
I would think if they ever did it again, they were probably going to do it on their appearance on the Jack Doherty show later that night, which I didn't look at as part of the research. Outside of that, no, I don't think they probably ever did it again.
No, I mean, it's understandable. It's not going to be that high up in their oeuvre, is it, in terms of fan favourites? But yeah, it almost makes it more spectacular that they got the Spice Girls, because they just did this one-off thing for it, And they didn't write the song kind of from scratch, but it's still something tailored specifically for Channel 5, and that's quite impressive.
I can't imagine it gets requested at too many of their concerts.
No, if I ever manage to make it to one, that's definitely what I'm getting a sign and holding up for.
So after the very exciting performance by the Spice Girls, we go to a very young Tim Vine with a very impressive haircut, it has to be said. Did you appreciate his blonde curtains?
I mean, how can you not? Absolutely stunning.
And his co-presenter Julia Bradbury for this half an hour. They really tried to pitch themselves very early on as a revolutionary new television channel. So a big focus of the first sort of 5 minutes of this taster program, if you like, is about how what they would call strand and strip the programs. And this is all to do with trying to fit in better with people's sort of daily lives than other channels do.
Thank you, the fabulous Spice Girls, for recording that song exclusively for us. And thank you for joining us on this historic occasion.
Hello, yes, this is 5, and she's Julia Bradbury.
And he's Tim Vine. Well, after years of promising, months of speculation, and literally years of planning, here we are, the modern alternative to...
Well, the modern alternative to old-style TV channels that expect you to fit in with their schedules.
Because this is 5, where our schedules are designed to fit in with your life. But what does that actually mean? Well, we've got the latest news on the hour every hour.
Except during movies, because we don't have that annoying habit of interrupting the plot halfway through with half an hour of news, so you forget what you were watching in the first place.
That is a perfect way to start.
Sorry to interrupt.
As I was saying, if you like movies, this is definitely the place, because we've got a movie for you every weekday evening at 9. Movies like Speed, Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
And late evening, we aim to send you to bed with a smile, courtesy of this man.
Excuse me, have you heard of Jack Doherty? Big pink fella, big bloke. You heard of Jack Doherty? Does anybody recognise the pink bloke?
Mr. Jack Doherty and a stellar array of star guests every weekday night at 11.
And that's not all. We've got drama, documentaries you'll actually enjoy watching, entertainment, sport, loads of programmes we hope you'll like.
And they're on at the time you want them on, the same time every weekday night. In the trade, this is known as a stripped programme schedule. Stripping for short.
And they're promising the same things at the same times every night. So a movie every night of the week at 9 o'clock. News bulletins on the hour every hour, apart from halfway through the movie, which I have to say has always annoyed me. So I was really glad looking back that they decided not to have a news bulletin in the middle of a movie.
Yeah, I think that's a really good decision, and it did sort of become known, Channel 5, for having that film slot. So this is probably part of it, the fact that they were so devoted to it that they didn't put any news in the middle. And looking at the schedule here, the film that they showed on the opening night was Beyond Fear, and looking at the schedule, it was 9 o'clock to 10:30. So unless that film was only an hour and 10 minutes long or an hour and a quarter long, did they have no advert breaks in it?
I'm not sure. Maybe the film itself had been edited.
Yeah, it could be an abridged version. It only came out in 97, so it came out this year. It was almost like they made it for the launch of Channel 5, but I don't think they did. But it's really concise, 9 to 10:30 there. I'd actually forgotten until he said that films would get edited for TV. Yeah, that could definitely be what it was.
Talking of the same things at the same time every night, the aforementioned Jack Doherty has his sort of comedy chat show at the same time every evening as well, which was a big thing in their schedules right at the start. And his first guests were the Spice Girls and Roger Moore as well, were the guests on the first show. So again, very, very high profile guests for the launch of the channel. Although then looking at what happened afterwards, Jack Doherty's show didn't last very long, going for 5 nights a week, and in fact was more popular when it was being guest hosted by Graham Norton.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah. it was more popular when it was hosted by Melinda Messenger as well. It wasn't just Graham Norton.
That's got to be difficult to take, hasn't it? That's got to be difficult.
I mean, according to Wikipedia, he went to the TV Awards one year expecting to win for that program, but Graham Norton won the prize for being the stand-in on his program. I mean, if that's not a kick in the teeth, then what is? But also, it looked like it used to be on every weekday, and then that went down to 4 days a week, then 3 days a week, then 2 days a week, and then eventually just one, and then it completely ended in, I think, the summer of '99. So it didn't last that long, and by his own admission, it wasn't the best thing, and he didn't really enjoy being a presenter in that guise. So yeah.
So we've already mentioned the lack of a news bulletin during a movie, but then we go on to talk about how the news is going to be done on Channel 5, and we have a piece with Kirsty Young, who speaks about how the news is going to be presented every hour on the hour. Scott Chisholm, the Craig Stadler lookalike, who was her co-anchor. Who he? Have you ever seen him before in your life?
No, I haven't. I was surprised when he popped up on screen saying he was going to be co-presenting the news. But yeah, have you looked up to see where he is now?
I have. All I could really find was that apparently he got sacked from Sky News for punching one of his colleagues. Don't know if that was on air or not, but apparently that's what went down. I mean, he only appears for about 10 seconds in this preview as well. It's Kirsty who's doing all the heavy lifting, so they were even trying to sideline him then, it would appear, in favour of Kirsty Young.
I did think that was quite interesting, actually, that news section, because it's almost a little bit laughable, isn't it, the way she's sort of saying, oh, it's going to be like completely revolutionary, it's all going to be about you, it's going to be vibrant and dynamic, and you're kind of thinking, well, it's just the news, like how much can you be making it into a new thing? It sounds a little bit like a desperate sales pitch from someone in a job interview doing a mock sales pitch for a sales job. But actually, it was quite revolutionary, and I've heard her talking about this on when she was a guest on Desert Island Discs, when she came back for that guest slot quite recently, and she was saying it was completely different to have a newsreader who was just stood up, not sat behind a desk. Yeah, that is what news is like now, isn't it? They have people just stood up and they interview guests and correspondents live on the show, and that was something that I think was pioneered by Kirsty Young and Channel 5. So yeah, fair play again. It's the second time I've said fair play, I think, but they got it right, and that is a long-term change in television.
So we're really moving through the different genres now, and the next few minutes is given over to Channel 5's flagship soap opera. Which self-respecting UK TV channel would go out without its own soap opera? And this is Family Affairs, which is another programme that debuted on the same day. In fact, it was directly after the sort of taster programme that we're talking about here. What do you think is the one thing I've got written down here in my notes for the Family Affairs slot?
Well, I've got something written down, and I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but is it to do with where it went in the following year or two?
No, it's not. All I've got written here is that there's a lovely burnt umber Mark III Corsa in the shot when it first of all pans across the street There's a lovely little Mark III Corsa there parked outside, which I thought you'd appreciate, but clearly not enough to note it down. So it sounds like you've delved into the sort of family affairs backstory. What have you got?
A little bit, yeah. I had completely forgotten about family affairs until I was researching this episode, and it came back to me how I think it was quite mocked. I remember talking about it at school and sort of watching it in a sort of like cringe watching it, thinking, oh, this is no good. Not that I really knew much about soaps when I was 12, but I don't think it had a great reputation right from the start. But I thought it was quite interesting to read about where it went in the following years. Apparently, the original premise of the series was focused on a family in a quiet suburb just outside London, which I think straight off the bat does not sound like a thrilling topic for a soap opera. Is it just a family living in the suburbs? And I think early on it didn't have high ratings, and so it was focused on these two families, the Hart and the Gates families. And because the ratings were so low, they actually changed that quite quickly, and then they brought in a new producer in the 98, so just a year later, and he revamped the whole thing and replaced the majority of the cast, including the whole Hart and Gates families. So the two families that the program was originally based around were got rid of. And in the beginning of 1999, the entire Hart family was killed in a boat explosion. So
oh my God.
They really did want to have a fresh start. And then they moved the series setting into more of an inner city. I think it went within the M25 orbit, so it became a little bit more edgy, and they got different characters, different families, and it did last for a while after that. But it's just funny how they misjudged the introduction so badly that they had to completely replace the two main families.
There's nothing like a major disaster to reset the cast of a soap opera, is there? I mean, we've spoken about the Emmerdale plane crash before with Will, and now the family affairs boat accident sounds like it's along the same lines. That's absolutely superb. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I'd love to know what Will thinks about family affairs, if they ever watched it or not, but it never came up on our soap operas episode, did it?
Next time I go and visit Will, I will ask them what they think of family affairs, and I will let you know. So we then move on to some of the international programming that Channel 5 has brought in to, would it be unkind to say, fill the schedules? That they bought a lot of these programmes to put on during the day and sort of pad the schedules out a bit.
Yeah, I think that's fair, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great use of one of your favourite tracks, I Got 5 on It by Loonies, in this section of the programme. And a quick mention for the show Jag, which gets a little trailer here, which my dad actually discovered, funny enough, when we got Sky. And I think he's seen every episode of Jag. So I just wanted to give that a mention, because that was really the only programme. I'd heard of quite a few of them. Was it Melrose Place or Peyton Place? It was one of the Place ones.
I'm not sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I'd heard of a few of them. Obviously, Xena Warrior Princess as well. But Jag is the only one really that ever got any traction in the Joslin household. So I just wanted to mention that quickly.
Remind the listeners what Jag is or was.
So Jag was right up my dad's Strasse. Jag actually stands for Judge Advocate General, and it was a programme based around legal proceedings in like the sort of naval scene. So this programme actually moves at a very quick pace. It's got a lot to cover, and we do have some bonus adverts to talk about as well in a second, which we're obviously very excited about. We then get a look at some of the original comedy that Channel 5 has commissioned. We get a very young Milton Jones telling a couple of his sort of trademark style gags before we have a look at a couple of original shows that have been commissioned. One called Hospital and one called We Know Where You Live. Now, I had to look both of these up because I'd never even heard of these, let alone seen them. Hospital, it would appear, only ever had one episode made, and it was shown on that opening night. And you get a lot of clips of Hospital, so there's a lot of it in this taster programme. We Know Where You Live actually lasted for an entire series. It did quite a bit better than Hospital. And it was a sort of general sketch show, but it did feature people like Sanjeev Bhaskar, Simon Pegg, Amanda Holden in its cast as well. So a few well-known names in We Know Where You Live. But it doesn't appear to have been enough to get it a second series. Rather bizarrely, they then discuss a programme which I actually remember quite well in the comedy section, which is a game show called 100%.
This is 100%. In the course of the next 25 minutes, I'll ask exactly 100 general knowledge questions. You will have 3 seconds to answer each question. In France, in 1910, kissing was banned on railways because it delayed trains. Is that true or false? It's true.
Now, I genuinely used to love 100%. I used to watch this on my school holidays on Channel 5 at the sort of lunchtime, I seem to recall. Did you ever watch 100%?
I completely forgotten it, but when I saw this, it reminded me maybe more of the name than anything. Did they get asked 100 questions, and it was sort of how many you got? Is your percentage something like that?
Yes, that's exactly right. There were 3 competitors, 100 general knowledge questions, a multiple choice of 3 answers, and you have 3 seconds to answer. And it's basically whoever gets the most out of 100 right then gets to stay on for the next show. I did actually have a bit of a look into this for some interesting trivia on 100% on the peerless UKGameshows.com website. And a chap called Ian Ligo had to be asked by the producers of the show to step down as champion because he was undefeated for 75 shows in a row. And they were worried. They were worried that his dominance was affecting the ratings.
75 episodes. Wow.
Indeed. You've got to be a hardcore quizzer to win 75 episodes of 100% in a row.
Or just to know someone who sets the questions on it, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's a horrific slander, or we might be opening ourselves up for illegal actions there. So let's strike that from the record. I don't want to, disparage him and his incredible record.
Absolutely. Ian, if you're listening, you want to tell your side of the story, get in touch, of course. We then get a little clip of what is possibly one of Channel 5's most well-known programmes from its launch time, which was Whittle, which was hosted by Tim Vine himself. And it's that sort of an idea that you start with 100 people and you whittle them down to 1 at the end, which has been done a number of times since. I think there was a national lottery game show which did the same sort of thing, but Whittle appeared to have been the first programme to do it. So then we move on to the adverts for this programme, and you might think that they're not really linked to the Channel 5 launch in any way, and that we're just going to have a nice little look at some 1997 adverts, but you would be wrong. The first advert ever shown on Channel 5 was Alex 4. Which product?
I can't remember. Tell me.
Chanel number 5. Of course it was.
Of course it is.
What else could it be?
Yeah. It's Kate Moss, isn't it?
It is indeed. Yeah.
Looking incredibly young.
Yeah, and I think that is a very clever and very judicious use of the advertising there. That's definitely a quiz question you can tease your friends with in future.
It was between that and 5 Alive.
I think Chanel might have just had a bit more in the budget than 5 Alive did. There's also a very clever thing done by Kellogg's Cornflakes where they show the advert that was shown on the ITV launch night and the advert that was shown on the Channel 4 launch day, before then showing an up-to-date advert for Kellogg's Cornflakes for the Channel 5 launch. So that was a pretty cool thing to do as well. So the first 2 adverts that you get on the Channel 5 launch day are really, really connected to the event, which is something I really like.
Yeah, I think that's really clever. It's good that they did tailor these adverts. They didn't just chuck anything on. They'd carefully thought about it.
So we come out of the adverts, and do you have any idea who the other comedian is who they show briefly telling a couple of sort of one-liners before they get back into it? Because I couldn't think of who it was.
I recognise him, but I can't think of his name. I recognise the person for sure, but I can't place him. I can't think who it is.
When I shut my eyes, it sounded like Tim Key, but it definitely didn't look like Tim Key, and would probably now be too old to be Tim Key, if you see what I mean, in 1997. So if anybody could solve that mystery for us, do let us know. So the whole second half of this show is very interesting, but one of the most interesting aspects of the whole thing was learning more about the retuning efforts that had to be done so that people could receive Channel 5. Now, I had a little look at this before I watched the launch night video, and I knew that there was some efforts that had to be gone to, but Channel 5 literally had an army of technicians going to people's houses across the country and retuning their VCRs so that their VCR would still work and they could pick up Channel 5 at the same time because they use the same sort of band on the TV. And they have a nice little thing with a few of the technicians where they sort of ask for their experiences of going around into people's houses. And my favourite is Angel from Bristol. Of course, it had to be. Our neck of the woods. And this is a very, very 90s clip
There are some houses where blokes have answered the door and I just didn't want to go in, but there's also the occasions where the door opens and there's this gorgeous bloke standing there, you know, so you just say, I've come to fiddle with your equipment, and they just let you in.
Nice. Classic.
That is very 90s, isn't it?
That
is
extremely
extremely
90s and very Channel 5 as well.
One interesting fact that Julia Bradbury gives out here, and I'm not sure if there's any citation for this, but the Channel 5 retuning operation was the biggest civilian operation in Britain since the island converted to natural gas.
Yeah.
That's what she says.
It sounds almost like it's a joke, because I didn't know we'd ever converted to natural gas. I didn't know that was the thing, but yeah, apparently... Was it 7,000 technicians they said that they needed to do this Channel 5 thing?
Something like that, yeah. There were a lot of households that needed this retuning job done.
Yeah, that must have been a very short, temporary job for a lot of people.
I was going to say, I wonder what they did after it had finished.
Because, yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of people, though. I can't imagine how much that cost, the budget for Channel 5.
If you're listening and you were a Channel 5 retuner in 1996, 1997... do let us know. We would love to hear from you.
Statistically, at least one of them must be listening to us.
Another quick thing I'll just mention here is that one of the technicians says that while they were in a customer's house, the customer was telling them about how they were convinced that Channel 5 was going to be broadcasting subliminal messaging into their household and that they didn't want it. And I just thought that was a little bit of an ugly portent into the situation we find ourselves in today.
Yes, very much so. And an early form of the conspiracy theory from the 90s.
Moving on quickly to sport then, and as part of the launch, Channel 5 had acquired the rights to the England versus Poland World Cup qualifier for the World Cup in France, which was going to be taking place the following year. There's a great talking head with David Seaman, who's been asked to give a preview of the game and clearly hasn't prepared anything at all. Sort of goes on for a bit about, oh yeah, we'll probably watch them on video and it'll be difficult, but we should win.
On Saturday, May the 31st, England's footballers travel to Poland for a vital World Cup clash, and Channel 5 will be there to bring you live and exclusive coverage. It's a match that England's footballers will be going all out to win. Here's England's goalkeeper, David Seaman.
We're up against quite a good team, especially in Poland. We played them at Wembley, found it quite difficult, but we'll see when we get out there. No doubt we'll be watching videos of them before the game, a few days before. Glenn always tends to do that. It should be hard, but we should win.
Even for a football interview, that is not illuminating in any way, that short interview, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's completely wood, and he's wearing his street clothes. So they pulled him in from somewhere to do it. It's very, very funny. And then, after that, comes a Corsham School link, does it not?
I think you must be talking about Phil de Glanville.
I am indeed talking about Phil de Glanville, who was at the time England's rugby union captain, and Channel 5 also had the rights to an England versus Argentina match, which was going to be played in Argentina. And the link is, Alex?
Well, he was the brother of popular teacher at the Corsham School, Ms. de Glanville, who was the tutor for one of the tutor groups in my year, actually. She was a science teacher. I once had a session with her making homemade paper for an enrichment day, and I'll never forget that.
Oh, wow, that sounds brilliant. Much more interesting than anything you could get up to with Phil, I would wager.
It was good. It was... It wasn't the best of the options for that enrichment day. I know some people were making robots and doing stuff outside, whereas we were mulching papier-mâché into sheets. But it was classic secondary school fare.
Yeah.
But I think Phil de Glanville sounds quite scared, doesn't he, in that interview about going down to South America. He's sort of implying that they're quite physical down there, the rugby teams, and I think I think he's a bit nervous. Yeah,
but he does predict a 20 points to 10 victory, doesn't he? So
he says I think it's going to be really close. Maybe 2010. That's not that close, Phil.
There's daylight between the two teams there, isn't there?
Yeah.
England actually played Argentina twice over the same week on that tour at the end of May, beginning of June 97. They won the first game by 46 points to 20. So it was sort of still the same sort of winning margin, like we're talking about scoring double the points of the other team. And then in the second game, Argentina actually turned the tables and beat England by 33 points to 13.
Oh, wow, okay. Well, I wonder how Phil played.
Well, he's not listed as man of the match in either of these, and it doesn't look like he was on the score sheet either. So we can only go on the cold hard statistics there, can't we? Again, Phil or Ms, if you're listening, get in touch, let us know. After the thrills and spills of the sport, we go on to possibly my favourite part of the whole thing, which is when they try and get down with the kids. And I always love it when people try and get down with the kids and television programmes try and get down with the kids. And there's two particularly poor examples here. The first one, it sort of pictures itself as a sports phone-in called Live and Dangerous with Dominic Diamond, late of the Gamesmaster parish. And there's a little trailer for it, and it's one of these things where they go, whoa, it's a no-holds-barred show. We've got absolutely no idea what it's going to be like or what's going to happen. Oh, it's going to be edge-of-your-seat stuff. No, it isn't. And then the second example of the format here is a programme called The Mag, which is hosted by Josie Darby. And this is one which is cool, quick action cuts, cameras, on the street. Oh, let's go here, let's go over there. Again, who knows what's going to happen.
It is so of its time, isn't it? A real period piece. It's nice to see Josie Darby, though, getting a slot on the new channel.
Can I tell you something about Josie Darby that's always stuck in my mind? And
Please do.
I hope I'm not being ungentlemanly here, but do you remember sort of over the school holidays, if you turned on The Big Breakfast or This Morning or a programme of that ilk, at a certain time of the year, you would get students opening their exam results live on air?
Yes, yeah, of
right?
course,
yeah. So Josie Darby was hosting The Big Breakfast. I was watching it. They had a girl opened her exam results live on air, and this girl didn't get what she wanted and started crying. And I'm sure Josie Darby had a bit of a pop at her. Like, sort of said, we're not having anybody crying in here. Go on, off you go. That sort of thing.
Really?
I'm sure that's what happened. But like I said, I hope I'm not being ungentlemanly and accusing Josie of something she didn't do. But that's the way I remember it.
Oh, I'd love to see a clip of that. If that's out there anywhere, please let us know.
Quick mention for Nancy Lamb's cookery programme, just because of her Bash Street Kids apron, which I really liked. I don't know if you spotted that.
I did, yeah. I saw the Beano logo. I didn't realise it was Bash Street Kids.
I think it's an entire Bash Street Kids strip that's on the on the apron, which is really good. So I enjoyed that, but not a lot more to say about that. Then
I should say that her restaurant is still open in London if you're interested in going. So she's still going strong, yeah.
Okay, maybe a little field trip to Nancy Lamb's restaurant. What do you think?
Yeah, we can see if she's still got that Beano apron.
Then we get another fast-moving, entertaining programme with all of the goss and all of the stuff that you want to know. It's Exclusive with Julia Bradbury and John O'Coleman. Remember him?
Yes, John O, yeah. He must be wearing shorts, right?
I don't think you could see if he was wearing shorts or not, but I think we can safely assume that he was. What made me laugh about this was they have a lot of fast cuts of people saying the title of the show. So clearly they've already recorded a few of these, and they've got a few talking heads saying, I'm so-and-so and watch Exclusive on Channel 5. But they've cut all the people just saying the word Exclusive. And here are the names that I could pick out from here. So we had Michael Palin, Eternal, Andy Garcia, Emma Bunton, one of your favourites, Woody Harrelson, Bob Hoskins, and Roland Rivron.
Roland Rivron. He gets an occasional mention on this podcast, doesn't he?
He does.
It was inevitable he was going to turn up on this episode.
But you've got all those massive names. And Roland Rivron.
Yeah.
That is not to say that Roland Rivron was not a 90s massive name, of course. I'm sorry again to do you down, Roland. That is not the exercise here, but I just felt it had to be mentioned. We're really getting close to the end of the programme now. There's a couple of shouts for documentaries that Channel 5 have made that are going to be broadcast. A rather unfortunately named documentary, considering things that happened afterwards, called Two Little Boys, which was about John Major and Tony Blair and the battle between them. And Tony Blair, of course, wasn't Prime Minister at this time. That was still a couple of months away. John Major was still Prime Minister when Channel 5 came into production. And then, we've already discussed at length the movies, but then you get a long cut of all of the movies you can expect to see. And I've really got to find out what that Hulk Hogan movie is, because that looks like one of the worst movies ever made. I need to... Probably Mr. Nanny or something like that, isn't it? But,
something along those lines.
Yeah. And then Tim and Julia thank us for our attention, wish us well with Channel 5, and then it's off to the first episode of Family Affairs. So that was a half-hour whistle-stop tour through everything you can expect from Channel 5. I really enjoyed watching that. It wasn't something I'd seen before, so I didn't know what to expect. and I just really enjoyed the way it was all put together and looking at the different types of programmes they had ready for us. Like I say, Teenage Down with the Kids segment was probably my favourite, just because it was very, very funny. And Channel 5 then, of course, went from strength to strength.
Yes, and it's ended up in its current guise as the official Ben Fogle channel, as far as I can tell. There's nothing wrong with that. I love a bit of Ben Fogle. But it has, yeah. It seems to have really found its niche these days. And those early days, it's interesting to see, where they came from and what they were initially starting with. But yeah, exciting times. I don't think you ever actually said if you remember that launch night itself. Did you tune in with the family and anticipate it?
If we did, I don't remember it. I probably would have tuned in for the Spice Girls. I do seem to recall that because I was a huge Spice Girls fan, like most children of my age were in the country at the time. But I'm not sure how long my attention was held after that. I do remember this is obviously an apocryphal story, bearing in mind what we've spoken about with the retuning. But I do remember the picture not being great as well when we first had it. That was definitely something that happened. And there is a clip of Greg Dyke, who was the sort of one of the figureheads of Channel 5 on an episode of Have I Got News For You, I think a couple of years later, recounting a story from one of the tuners because somebody had reported they were having trouble picking up the channel, and they had found a sausage wedged in the back of the video recorder. And the technician said, "Why is there a sausage in the back of this video recorder?" And apparently the owner said, "Well, it works when I stick my finger in there."
Oh, that's nice. Very nice.
And again, that's symptomatic of the time. We say this a lot on the podcast, but it's not something you would get today. You would not get a startup TV channel having these sorts of problems and having to go through this now. In an era where you are seemingly able to launch a TV channel at any time with very little equipment or know-how, it wouldn't happen, and it's something that should be cherished.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I've got a real soft spot, I think, for that era in general, and Channel 5 sort of typifies that era, so a lot of love for it.
So that was our whistle-stop tour through the launch night of Channel 5 and our memories of the early days of the channel. I really enjoyed looking at that, I have to say. It wasn't an area that I'd looked into before. I found out loads of interesting stuff and saw some really great and interesting TV from the time as well, so it can't be bad, can it?
No, not at all. It's a lovely little time capsule, and I hope listeners will go and watch that YouTube channel and get a little bit of a blast from the past as well.
Absolutely, we will stick the link in the description. There is on the video, past that first half an hour, which we watched, pretty much all of the opening night as well, so you can go through and watch the first episode of Family Affairs and the first episode of the Jack Doherty Show. There's plenty on that. There's about 2.5 hours of material, so yeah, do go and have a look and let us know what you think. Alex, when people have looked at that video and want to let us know what they think of the launch night of Channel 5, how can they get in touch with us?
They can find us on our link tree, which has links to our Instagram, our YouTube, our X, and our email address should you wish to email us. I have not checked that for maybe 3 months, so I advise you to just contact us through Instagram if you want to get hold of us. But please do go on there. There's a link below, so click on there and find us for your correspondence.
Do you think you could check it before the next episode? Because I'm worried that Geoff's sending some important sort of legal documents through on that address and we're just not checking it.
Quite possibly, yeah. He might be sending stuff through about my new housing situation, so I should check that.
Exactly, yeah. And you owe Barrett Homes about £800,000 now, don't you?
Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
Well, we are quickly approaching the most wonderful time of the year, and in order to get ready for that, we are going to be taking a look at another classic Argos catalogue and picking out some of our favourite products. On the next episode of It'll Be Alright in the 90s, that's all to come, that's all to look forward to. Until next time we meet, thanks for listening. It's goodbye from me. I'm just off to win 75 episodes of 100% in a row.
And it's goodbye from me. I'm just off to make some homemade paper with Mr. Glanville.
Bye for now.
Bye.